Good morning. It is morning huddle time. I'm Chad Prinky here alongside Stacy Holzinger, as always.
The nature of the beast is the competitive nature of the industry.
Is if you can see it, you can be it.
It's all about the people. The people are what make it great and worthwhile.
Yeah, anything that I think helps build the story behind the company is great.
These are the things that that you're like, we don't need that because we have plenty of work right now. Got it. But if you don't do it now, where are you going to have work in the future? The Morning Huddle Construction Show is fortunate to have 5 sponsors for Season 7, helping us to spread the word and create positive change in the construction industry. And we want to give a shout out to each of them and thank them now. First is Katz Abosch. This is a middle market accounting firm with a deep specialization in construction, tax, audit, accounting, fantastic group of people. Next is Lawrence Law. This is a boutique law firm that works with contractors and helps them with their day-to-day legal needs as well as all of their most significant legal challenges that they might run up against. Lawrence Law. Then we have Sandy Spring Bank, which is a regional bank in Maryland with a group of people who really understand what the needs of construction businesses are and who partner with you to achieve your financial aims. So Sandy Spring Bank. And then we have Marsh McLennan Agency, bonding and insurance professionals really just have unparalleled insight into the construction industry. They're the best in the business. And then lastly, we have Genesis AEC. And Genesis is a full service architecture, engineering, and construction management firm with a deep specialization in the life sciences industry. We also happen to have some of their folks help us with guest hosting from time to time. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Let's get back to the show. Good morning. It is morning huddle time. Stacy, how are you this morning back in Maryland?
I'm doing good. I know we were just catching up on the Commanders and that awesome play. So, Maryland's pretty happy.
Yeah, they'll ride that high for as long as they possibly can.
That's
right?
Right. That's right.
That's right. So today is a different kind of vibe to start the huddle. Am I right? Like this is.
Yeah.
How's this feel from your perspective, Stacy? What's this like to see two people who are live together across the screen?
Well, great, I guess.
Yeah.
And you guys are twinning today with your matching pins.
Oh my God! You had to bring up the matching pin. This is a very serendipitous day. So here's our guest. It's Halloween.
It is Halloween.
That was a Halloween slip up. Our guest, Matt DeSarno. Matt is the I'll let Matt tell you more about himself. But Matt is from Maryland, is a Redskins fan.
Correct.
And lives down now in Fort Worth. And when we booked Matt for the show, I was like, holy smokes, I'm actually going to be in Fort Worth during that time for the show. Not planned. So very serendipitously, we are here at the Hotel Drover where is this in Fort Worth?
In the Stockyards.
Which is really, really cool. It's a very, very, it's like I'm inspired to buy cowboy boots. I'm going to do it as soon as I have some at home, but I want to buy more.
And a hat. There's a hat store right here called the Best Hat Store.
Is it the best hats?
It is the best hats.
Yeah. All right,
But
cool.
You better bring all your money there.
Yeah. I don't I don't need one that bad, I'm afraid. Yeah. Do you have cowboy gear living in Texas now?
I do. Well, my family and I always go to the Fort Worth Rodeo, which is not far from here and we dress the part. We dress appropriately for the rodeo. So
That's awesome.
I have boots and a hat, and we're ready to go.
Well, you got to, right? You're going to the rodeo.
Yeah.
Can't show the rodeo in sneakers. What are we doing?
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It's good.
So we're at the Hotel Drover. I'm here for a conference. Matt's here because it's where he lives, and not at the hotel. But he's in the area. It's where he lives. And yes, as Stacy pointed out, damn it, we're wearing the exact same pants, which is weird because they're not normal pants, and you're not gonna see the pants. We're not standing up for the show. That's not happening. But suffice it to say, they exist. They are pants, and they're exactly the same. So Matt, tell us a little bit about your business, man. Your business, your background. Matt and I share a passion about a topic that we're going to dig into today, which is preventing wage theft, but more importantly, probably really talking about what's going on in our immigration system and in our labor system, and immediately what companies need to do to be compliant, but also what ultimately we need to do to fix the bullshit the situation that we're in. So,
Yeah.
but Matt, tell us more about yourself.
Certainly, yeah. Thanks for having me, Stacy. It's good to meet you on the screen. And yeah, we're here at the beautiful Hotel Drover, which is just an awesome place, newly developed, right in the Fort Worth Stockyards. I'm a Texan by choice. I finished my prior career here and decided to stay here, but I am from the Washington D.C. area, where I know many of the listeners to this podcast are. I know where you guys are based, and it's where kind of our company was born. But I don't have a traditional tech startup background. Or even a traditional, definitely not a traditional construction tech startup background. I spent my professional life in service to the country. I was an Army officer right out of college. I was stationed here in Texas down at what was then Fort Hood, which is now Fort Cavazos, as an infantry officer. I applied to be in the FBI in about my last year of my commitment in the Army. Got halfway through the process, got out of the Army, and the FBI stopped hiring. It was a freeze.
Oh no,
freeze.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I went to work in Austin at Dell, and then I worked briefly for a software company. And right after 9/11, the FBI was letting basically anybody in, and that's how I got in there. And had just a spectacular career. You know, I've always wanted to be an FBI agent. That was my dream job, and I got sent to San Diego and got to work street gangs and prison gangs in Southern California. And then I came back to Washington and worked in our gang unit. Then I got sent to Chicago to lead a gang task force with the Chicago Police Department. Had another job in Chicago where I had responsibility over white collar crime and corruption. And then came back over as an ASAC to the gangs, drugs, organized crime, SWAT arena. And then in late 2015, my boss, who had been a counterterrorism agent his career, said, "You got to go back to counterterrorism because this ISIS thing is real, and we need you to do that." And I said, "I can't even spell counterterrorism. I'm a gang guy." And he said, "No, you got to do that."
Right.
So I did that. Had an awesome.
Turns out terrorists are basically just gangs that are ideological.
There are many similarities. You got some different partner agencies. You know, you're working with some different partner agencies, some the same, but very, very a lot of similarities. So anyway, spent about 3 years in our counterterrorism division with some really cool jobs, you know, managing source operations overseas, and then ultimately leading the FBI's global counterterrorism effort, the program from headquarters. Then I got to work at Washington field office, so I finally got to work in my hometown. Even though I'd been at FBI headquarters, I was leading criminal and cyber investigations in the Washington field office, and got to, you know, work in my city with people I had grown up with who were now police leaders in the city. And then my last job, I was fortunate enough to be the special agent in charge of the Dallas field office covering the northern half of the state. And that was just like a dream job. It was spectacular. I had the kind of enthusiasm. I had a great career, and I had much enthusiasm and joy from every one of my positions at the FBI. But the very first agent job and the very last special agent in charge job in Dallas were probably the overall highlights. I had a great team, covered the entire northern half of the state from Lufkin to Amarillo. If people have familiarity with the geography of the state, that's an 800-mile range there.
So then one day,
yeah,
you're just like, yeah, I'm going to start a software company.
Exactly. So really what happened is I was getting some pressure to go back to Washington to FBI headquarters. I really didn't want to do that. I was happy here, with my family was happy here, and I started looking at opportunities, typical opportunities like lead a security program for a large company. And I was also talking to my brother, who owns a large drywall subcontractor in the Washington, D.C. area. He and his partner, Sean Keegan, own Rock Spring Contracting. And we started talking about an experience that they had when I was back in WFO, Washington field office, that I remembered. Yeah. Where the Attorney General, you know, filed a wage theft suit against them. And when that happened, they looked all over the marketplace for a solution to force their subs into compliance, and to basically ensure that their subs did not expose them to another one of these suits, because if they had gotten caught again, it would be a big problem, and they'd be barred from doing work in the district. And there was
you can't afford it.
Can't afford it. It's an existential threat.
And you know, knowing contractors like I do, I'm sure their visibility into the problem was almost nothing before they ended up with the fine. And then they're like, what the hell?
Absolutely.
They end up with the fine, and then they start trying to figure out how to solve it. And this is an interesting dovetail, and to how you end up doing this work, because I'm guessing with your work with gangs
Yeah.
in Southern California,
Yeah.
right? As an
Yes.
example, not
Yes.
being the only place, obviously, you know, Texas, all along the border, you can see the connection between, you know, commerce,
Yes.
black market,
Yep.
or legal.
Yeah.
But you can see the connection between commerce and gangs and you know, in the
Trafficking.
border,
Yep.
right? And trafficking and
Yep.
how that sort of works, right? It is trafficking. It's also if people hear that and they get this whole term in their mind, like they picture, and it is very real, right? But they picture poor underage girls being taken from their families, or, you know, like that kind of stuff, which is happening and very
Or
serious.
massage
And,
parlors or nail salons, all
right.
those kinds of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's human trafficking on a, but there's a whole other class of human trafficking of trafficking in general that's going on.
Correct.
You know, through the border. So
Yeah.
sorry, but
No,
this is
yeah.
where Verfico is born, right?
It is. So when Rock Spring had their problem, and they looked all over for a solution that could help make them compliant, because in addition to the fines, they had these really stringent, injunctive terms of the settlement that
Yep.
the DC Attorney General put on them, and they had to comply with them, otherwise they wouldn't be able to continue. So they couldn't find a solution out there in 2019 that did that.
So wait, the government mandated, you know, hey, you have to do a thing that there's really no solution for.
Well, you could do it all with paper, you know, as
Right.
certified payroll, old school, or, you know, you can take some tools like LCP Tracker or Elation and then put additional like consultants on top of that to make sure everything's accurate.
Either way, wildly inefficient.
Very inefficient and difficult for second and third tier subs to comply with.
Yep.
So Rock Spring actually hired a software development team to build the initial version of Verfico. And when I was talking to my brother about it, I started to learn a little bit more about the problem, realized that really what this is a scheme, right? I've spent my life figuring out and collecting evidence of and exposing schemes. So really what's happening at scale in some places and on smaller scales in other places is a scheme. Sometimes there is legit trafficking involved. Sometimes it's just a scheme to reduce cost, right?
Yeah.
And the victims of this scheme, though, which is a little bit counterintuitive, are all of us, right? If you've got a large portion of the workforce that is working off the books in one way or another, either with a 1099 or with no 1099 at all, being paid under the table, not only are they ripe for exploitation in terms of underpayment, lack of overtime, you know, violations of federal labor laws, they could be exploited, but the American public in general is being shorted a significant amount of tax revenue. Now, you know, many people who work that way do pay taxes, but many people do not, and many employers who hire dozens or hundreds of people in that type of capacity are not paying their share of payroll taxes,
Yeah,
right? So that money is leaving the country, going somewhere else, or definitely not going into our coffers. But all those people are using the systems that the tax base pays for, right? So it's akin in a way to healthcare fraud, which I spent some time working, where healthcare costs get really driven up by major fraud schemes, right? And all of us end up paying higher healthcare costs, right? Similarly, in this environment, we're seeing that. And so on a macro level, that's the issue. On a micro level, good companies are being exposed to risk that they don't need to be exposed to because of the misbehavior of lower tiered companies over which they currently have no visibility.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Love it. I think that's a great synopsis. And I think, you know, to make things maybe even more, help people get to even more the core of what's going on. The scheme that you talk about, right? Let's break it down into its simple components.
Sure.
What's happening first off, and as political as this can get, let's try to just stick with the facts.
Sure.
What is happening at the border?
So I'm glad you asked me that. One of my partners, co-founders, Jeff Williams, is our chief revenue officer, who came out of Texas DPS. In the border here in Texas DPS has a major role down there. You know, what's happening at the border is we have seen an unprecedented influx of immigration, illegal immigration at our border primarily during the periods of the mid 2021 to, early 2024. That fortunately has been reduced, but that influx of people happened for multiple reasons, right? One of the main reasons is we have created an economic magnet to bring that people want.
No doubt,
right?
No doubt.
So we
say we need you. They don't come here and hang out. They come here and work.
Yeah.
They legal, whatever type of work they get into,
correct.
They are coming here to work. There's no doubt about it.
For some type of opportunity, right?
For some type of opportunity.
There are certainly bad actors in that crowd. There are certainly actors who come from places that we would call, threat countries.
No doubt.
But the vast majority of them are coming here obviously to work, and we're creating an economic magnet. On the flip side of that, what we are also creating is a workforce that is both ripe for exploitation, willing to work for low wages,
right,
and also prone to schemes like trafficking, right? And this happens in both a witting and an unwitting way, right? There are many companies that are unwitting to it. They may have a hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil approach, or they may have a just this is the way we've always done business approach, right? Yep. If they're not that old. There are also, in many instances, labor brokers who are witting to it and who are enriching themselves on the backs of of workers here in the United States. So, an example: if you're a general contractor and you hire me as a trade sub, and I sub that work down to ABC Construction,
sure,
and at 3 different ABC Construction, 123 Construction, and DCA Construction. And if one of those 3 companies decides that they are just going to pocket most of my money and only pay the workers, or only pay half of the workers anything, right? Because they told the workers, you got to bring somebody else with you. I have no visibility of that as a GC or even as a trade sub, absent some sort of technology tool, right?
I want to go back there for a second. You said because they say you got to bring somebody else with you.
Yeah.
That's another scheme.
It is a common way to operate. Different levels of it happens in frequency in different places. But what we have seen is where, okay, we're falling behind, right? I'm a third tier sub labor broker, and I've got typically 10 guys on the job, but I'm really falling behind. So I need to bring 20 guys on Friday or 20 guys on Saturday.
Right.
So I tell each of my guys, bring one more person with you.
That's right.
And they bring them, but I just still pay the exact same.
Right. And I say, figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. I was going to pay, $5,000 to this group of 10. Now I'm going to pay $5,000 to this group of 30. Yeah. And I'm going to say, figure it out.
Yeah. And I think one of the nuances here, that you brought up the general situation at the border, right? And the larger situation is immigration, but at the core of that are immigrants, right? And it is you can be pro-immigrant, but also acknowledge that we need to reform the immigration system and have a border that is not porous and out of control.
Yeah,
right?
I think there's absolutely no plausible argument that we don't need immigration.
Correct.
We absolutely need immigration. Either that or we need to go back to having like 8 kids per family. Yeah. Because to grow our economy to the extent that it wants to grow, needs to grow, to continue to maintain healthy levels, we need people, and we're getting workers through this stream. The problem is, as you're describing it, is the way that it works is it hurts and exploits the worker themselves to do it the way that we're doing it. The way that we're doing it, meaning under the table, not fair wages that then they can decide whether or not they want to pay taxes on. And if you're here illegally, what's the likelihood that you really want anybody knowing anything about you, right? So plenty of them aren't filing.
Correct.
For that reason, because they want to stay off the radar. How could you blame them? They're trying to stay hidden. Right. So it hurts the American taxpayer, because the American taxpayer is shouldering the burden of a whole bunch of people who are here who are working and making money but not paying taxes. And it hurts a legitimate workforce, not a black market or white or gray market workforce. It hurts a legitimate workforce that's sitting here saying, like, hold on, you're devaluing
Correct.
what I do every day. Hanging drywall is not a piece of cake. This is hard work. And I, as a W-2 employee, am being paid, $24 an hour to do it.
Right.
Why is this guy getting paid the equivalent of $14 an hour to do it and driving down prices from legitimate companies? So it hurts the legitimate worker, it hurts the legitimate company. And so, it has this sort of consistent downstream effect. The only winners, if you will, are the people who get to spend less on construction.
Correct.
Right. At the end of the day, it's the owner, whoever is getting to buy construction for less. And if you want to talk about hear no evil, see no evil, there's your guy. Right. The owner is like, I have no idea. I just hire contractors. It's not my problem. I don't know what's going on. You agree?
That does happen. But what I would say to the owners is that they are bearing an unnecessary amount of reputational risk, particularly institutional owners, recognizable brands like big tech companies building hundreds of data centers every year. Right. If that kind of stuff is going on at a Google or Microsoft or AWS data center, I don't think that the core values of those companies and the leaders of those companies are willing to have that in the headlines.
Yeah, Google, a headline says Google is pro worker exploitation. They're
correct.
They're gonna have a serious problem with that.
Correct. And these companies have had some media around that in the remote workforce, gig workforce, where they've got lots of contractors doing a lot of remote work. And there's been class action suits, Uber, same thing. But that doesn't hit the way the hard work of a commercial construction site, dangerous work of a commercial construction site hits, right?
Absolutely.
So, it's a really challenging situation. So to go back to the immigration thing, you can be pro-immigrant, but also believe that there should be the rule of law around not only the immigration system, but also the work that's being done. And like you mentioned, the influx of too many illegal undocumented workers causes disadvantages to many parts of society, to include legal American workers or legal immigrant workers who want to work for full wages, right? So that's that piece of it. But what we decided, and this is why I think you titled this A Capitalist Alternative, is, I am not particularly confident in elected officials' willingness or really desire to actually solve the larger immigration problem meaningfully and quickly, right? We saw that happen over the course of the last year. And, that was
a very, very politically appropriate way to say that, right? I'm not confident.
Yes, I'm not. Yeah. And to argue that, you don't need legislation to fix this problem is just not accurate.
Agreed.
Only Congress can appropriate funds, and it does take funds to fix a program like immigration.
100%.
So we need a fix. I'm not confident we're going to get it. A part of that larger immigration problem that I am confident that we can personally affect, we at Verfico can personally affect, is the wage theft piece of it.
That's right.
It's the money piece of it. And we can help ensure that workers aren't getting exploited, and help ensure that legitimate, good American enterprises aren't being exposed to risk that they don't have to be exposed to.
Furthermore, if those workers aren't being exploited, it has the trickle-down effect of also preventing as you said, the legal workforce from being undermined by an exploited workforce, right? If I can buy exactly what you're doing for a fraction of what you do it for today, why would I not do that?
Right.
Reputational risk. Okay, but I'm not Google. I'm XYZ Development Co. LLC that was just formed to build this building, right? Like, you want to torch me, right? Like that kind of thing.
I'll just stand up a new company.
So we have to make it to where that this is where the law has to come in. And I'm with you. Like, look, I've said this 100 times on the show, or at least 10. I don't know. Probably I exaggerate. But I am 100% a capitalist. I hate when the government places its hand on the scales of enterprise.
Right.
But this is not. That is all things being equal. So, like, in other words, I have absolutely no problem if there is a market for buying things for less.
Yes.
It's just that those things can't be freaking illegal.
Correct.
And if those things are legal and they're still willing to work for less, then that's going to have an adjustment on the market. And then there's going to be a premium market, and there's going to be a discount market, or right, and that's okay.
Right.
I want to let that play out. But what I don't want to see is in an environment where a significant portion of the workforce is wrapped up in a scheme, is being exploited. And look, I care about them, but I care a whole hell of a lot more about the broader impacts on the economy. That's the truth for me.
Yeah. And I would add to that, in my past experience, particularly in the national security realm, working with international partners and partner services, intelligence services and law enforcement agencies, one of the things that's always been a uniquely American value, and some of our closest allies share this value, is that when we are in partnerships, we're looking for win-win, right? It's actual collaboration. And really successful enterprises do that as well. Not necessarily a winner and a loser in a very transactional view. My opinion from what I've seen over the last couple decades, particularly in this labor versus big business scenario, is that there's always got to be a winner and a loser, and the two are always at odds with each other, whether it's organized labor or 1099 labor against major enterprise. Our position is everybody's losing here because of this, right? We can protect both workers and companies through technology, and it doesn't have to be a winner and a loser. It should be an across the board gain for the macro economy for the United States and for the workers and the companies. Like we've got enough, particularly in critical infrastructure now and data center growth now, with the money coming, the federal money coming into construction. There are more regulatory requirements. There are more compliance reporting requirements. And so we are in a position right now to help be the easy button for some of that stuff, but also create that transparency for that win-win.
So in 30 seconds and in very simple terms, can you describe how the software works, what the solution is, just to educate?
Sure, very high level. So what we do is we collect worker information, time worked information from the worker, and we do that a variety of ways. We have a mobile app that does that. We have a partner. We've done this with multiple partners, but primarily we work with a partner called Odin Labs, and they have multiple check-in, check-out capabilities and worker onboarding capabilities, and safety orientation delivery capabilities that can include a mobile app, a badge, a hard hat sticker.
So every employee, every worker on the site
can clock themselves in and clock themselves out using a variety of ways.
So we know who is there and for how long they're there,
and what company they work
for, no matter what.
So we're creating visibility now for our customer, who's typically the large GC. He can now see that the flooring guy subbed this job out to 4 different subs, right? Where before he just knows who the flooring trade sub is, who the drywall trade sub is. So now he can see every company and every person who's on the job site. We then establish an instance of our platform, Verfico, with each trade subcontractor. That trade subcontractor can now see all of their people and all of their subs that they've hired for the job. That trade subcontractor also is responsible for gathering evidence of pay from their subs and for their people, submitting that evidence of pay, whether it's a payroll report or canceled checks or an Excel spreadsheet exported from their payroll, and submitting that into our system. We created an AI ingestion engine that can normalize that data and reconcile that data with the time worked information, and then provide our customers with risk level reports for each trade subcontractor and their subs. So we go to the trade subcontractor level. There are many timekeeping systems out there. Many payroll systems out there.
There are.
And almost all those are for an employer to focus on his employee's time, an employer for his employee's payroll. The challenge on a big commercial construction site is there might be 75 employers on there. Right.
Absolutely.
And one GCCM or one owner that has some responsibility over all of it. So we are agnostic to payroll systems, agnostic to timekeeping systems. Our goal is to bring the data together and then provide visibility to our customers so that they can basically enforce accountability on their job sites, and also really see it when it's happening. A lot of these wage theft suits get out of control because it's By the time it's getting settled, it's 300 workers for 9 months.
And you know, some of that is not true.
Right.
Like some
absolutely.
of that, right? Some of it's people starting to pile on, which is now the exploited are exploiting, right?
Correct.
Like, you know, they're capitalizing on an opportunity to make money because there's some attorney who's like, hey, we could do this.
I was just on a panel with a plaintiff's attorney who said, who was talking about this problem. It was me at in-house from Gilbane and a plaintiff's attorney. And the plaintiff's attorney was saying, look, if you guys get sued, we're talking to construction lawyers, you're subject to my client's memory. And my clients do not under-remember the number of hours they worked, right? But with a system like Verfico, you can not only have quick visibility of it, but also have an actual record of that guy was only on my job site 3 days, and these are the 3 days, and this is what he was paid.
So is the customer the trade contractor, or is the customer the general contractor? Could it be both?
We have really 3 ideal customer profiles. We can sell to owners and developers.
I would love that. By the way,
absolutely.
Good luck on that.
I love that too. It's not easy. Sometimes they just want to require it, and then we sell to the GC.
That makes a lot. Right? I can see that
works
happen.
for us too.
Right. Yeah.
And we can also sell to trade subs, best for large trade subs who have lots of jobs who are employing subcontractors.
Yep.
If a trade sub is self-performing, you know, they probably have their own systems in place. But we do have customers in all 3 of those categories. The way we generate revenue is through a license fee and a usage fee. And right now we're really, we're probably revenue-wise, probably 60% GCs, 30% subs, 10% owners.
Yep, that makes total sense.
Yep.
And the more, depending on what rules get rolled out in different jurisdictions, right? I know in DC, they now have made general contractors liable, the same as the trade contractors have been liable. So now that it can roll up with treble damages and all that kind of stuff. So all of a sudden the GCs are like, all right, let's buy this. It's really insurance. In the form of software to make sure that this isn't happening on our projects. What we can't guarantee is that these people aren't illegal. That doesn't matter. And for the sake of this exercise, you're definitely going to have let's pretend that there's plenty of undocumented workers on this job site.
Correct.
But what we can prove is that we are not exploiting them.
Yep.
And because we can prove that, we're solving some of this bigger picture problem, which I think is we gotta be for that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how a person could argue against it, though. My guess is the chat is active, Stacy. I'm not sure. But my guess is we may have some people with some comments or some questions.
We have one question from Kenny Malik. Are GCs paid enough of a fee from the developers to cover their cost and make a reasonable profit?
Yeah. So no, in other words, at the end of the day, and I couldn't agree with you more. Sorry, I don't know if that was a question or a comment, but
question.
Okay, so frame it. I missed the first end of it. What was the?
Sure. Are GCs paid enough of a fee from the developers to cover their costs and make a reasonable profit?
Do you have exposure to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've talked to Kenny about this before. It's a good question, and it's part of this larger issue, right? One of the things that we see is that, or that we hear a lot about, is that GCs run really tight margins, right? In terms of the cost, if you're talking about the cost of Verfico, typically that cost is being passed on to the owner in one way or another. If you're talking about the cost of the increased cost of actually doing business and hiring labor properly, I think there's a couple angles to that. And one of those angles is on insurance, right? So many general contractors can really benefit from reduced insurance costs. And I talked a little bit about our partner Odin and the types of compliance they work with, and then we have the wage piece. But with Odin and Verfico together, you've got a complete worker onboarding system. You know everyone who's on your job site. You have their credentials completely managed. You can manage safety incidents. It's really like an end-to-end worker level compliance tool that can both drive down insurance costs, but also really refine your insurance spend, particularly on OSIPs and CSIPs. So there's a lot of opportunity there to have significant cost savings by driving at the GC level compliance down to the worker level.
So I think at the end of the day, that's one way to take that question, and that's probably how Kenny meant it. Though I imagine we probably have some members of the audience who are sitting there thinking, all this is well and good, guys, but low price wins, right? And that sort of low price environment rules all. And are the general contractors, do they have enough money in their job to hire the more responsible sub? I have a couple of thoughts on that front. One is, if
that's what Kenny meant, but
yes,
I want to hear how you address it.
Well, so on one hand, the predominant contracting method on larger scale projects, depending on where you are in the country, but the predominant method that is more than 50% now is a cost plus GMP. And so in a cost plus GMP, the owner is getting full visibility, or at least has the chance to have full visibility into the numbers, and the general contractor doesn't have to buy underneath their budget necessarily. They're more buying underneath an owner budget. And so this is, I think, an opportunity in this new awakened world where we can look around and say, wait a minute, some of the numbers I'm getting might in fact be bullshit. And they may be reflecting exploited workers. If the general contractor in a lump sum contract where they've got $50 million to buy all their trades and they got to figure it out, if the general contractor is under pressure with a gun to their head, they may end up buying that, exploitative number, right? They may end up saying like, hey, they were so much lower. Let's just, take a bunch of Advil and buy some insurance and pray, right? That type of thing. But in a cost plus GMP market, I believe the general contractor should be educating the owner, and frankly, the owner should be educating themselves on this topic. And to your point, we should all of us should want to protect our reputations. Correct. We should want to protect ourselves against, legal exposure, and we should want to do the right freaking thing. And I think really, truly, I do believe that this is a temporary issue. We aren't going to be facing this issue 20 years from now. We're going to be, and I have all kinds of theories on that. Like a lot of, in other words, I think a lot of the people that have come here will have, it'll be their children who are participating in the workforce, at that point, and they'll be American citizens. And that's another reason that they come here, right? In addition to the economic magnet is to say, like, if I can get there and have kids, they can become Americans. God, we got to fix immigration. That really is the at the heart of the damn thing, isn't it? But I agree. I also don't have confidence. Anyway, long story short, with is the GC being paid enough to do it? My answer would be, from an undereducated owner that is going lump sum with a general contractor, almost never, and that is definitely causing this problem. Therefore, the GC should want to educate the heck out of the owners. Correct. Because the GC has the exposure, and at least under current law in all the jurisdictions I've seen, the owner doesn't have any of the exposure. Correct. So the owner's like, I don't know how they got low. But and so one other thing that grenade I'll throw into the lobby is I think owners ought to be the one. We should be able to roll it up not just to the GC level but to the owner level. And if you did that, you would see an entirely different procurement model, because at the end of the day, the whole low bid pressure, all of that really stems from one source, which is the owner.
So we're seeing that exact thing. So a couple points on that. The first thing is, we know we're not going to get rid of 1099 workers like that, right? So we had to find a way to accept evidence of pay for independent contractors, even if they're misclassified independent contractors, to give our customers confidence that those people who are misclassified as independent contractors are at least getting paid what I want them to get paid, right? Above minimum wage.
Yeah, you can at least prove
you're not exploiting them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a big unlock for us, for a couple big GCs, because they were like, we're building some multifamily stuff over here where there's going to be 1099s.
There's going to be 1099s, yeah.
So that there's that piece. To talk about the owner, so we have we see much more enforcement and litigation activity in areas where there's contested union space, where there are worker-friendly labor laws, and where there's public money going into projects.
Name a few jurisdictions real quick.
New York City. So, Maryland, Washington, D.C., very active. The states of Illinois, New York, California, Minnesota, Colorado, and many and several others put joint and several liability on the general contractor. But even in states where there's not joint and several liability on the general contractor, there's the reputational piece, and the federal law often does.
And just as a little side note, whether you're an open shop or a union shop, if you're trying to eliminate or minimize black market labor, you should be for these things.
Yeah, correct. But where we see also a lot of opportunity is in the affordable housing space. So the two major areas where we see opportunity are now projects that now have public money that didn't before, right? Data centers, infrastructure, wafer fabs, large manufacturing facilities, water treatment plants, those types of places. Affordable housing where there's a tax abatement involved, right? So many, particularly in New York, there's a new tax abatement called 45X for affordable. Affordable and data centers are the things being built, all over the country right now. Almost always on affordable, there's going to be some sort of tax incentive to develop the project. That puts the owner in the liability pool, right? Yep. Because if there's an issue of noncompliance on that job, the owner's the one who's going to lose the tax abatement, and it bankrupts the job. Most of these projects with big tax abatements aren't worth doing unless you get the tax abatement. And specifically in New York, the law is that any violation of wage and hour laws for up to 6 years after the completion of the project can cause a clawback of all the tax incentives. So huge incentive to comply there for the owner themselves. And those are some of those, 545 Madison LLC ones too, not just the big boys like
right. Yeah, no, not just the ones that don't want to see their name in the paper, exactly, but the ones that don't want to be bankrupted by the fact that they were counting on millions of dollars of government incentives to build the project and having those proceeds clawed back within the next 6 years. That's terrifying.
Especially developers who also have a captive GC that builds their stuff. I mean, they're holding all the risk there. So totally. We work with a lot of those guys, and they're great customers because they get it. Yeah.
They get it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and so, again, we're back to this, and I can't believe that I am saying that, the way that New York is making laws is something that I would support in this particular case. I don't know that I've ever thought of those words.
I mean, it's tough to build there. It's a highly regulated environment, but we're here in Texas, probably the most unregulated business environment there is, and our second largest concentration of customers is in this state. And the reason for that is because there are responsible owners here who really, this is really ripe for exploitation, right? You got a low minimum wage, you got lots of undocumented workers. And so we are finding particularly municipalities who are saying, look, I'm not going to have workers getting exploited on my public money job. I want to use Verfico to make sure that doesn't happen. So, even in an unregulated environment, we can help prevent that.
I would love to see that happen just through market forces alone.
I would too.
It's just not real. That's not how it's gonna go down. It's not how it's gonna go down. But you're right. For like, if you're a large data center builder like an Amazon, you definitely aren't going to want to see your name in the paper, and you're going to do the right thing because of that pressure. Some people are going to do the right thing, God love them, because they want to do the right thing, and out of no other consequence. But the capitalist draw to go with the lowest possible cost is without any repercussions. It's too much to overcome. So you in fact have to make the things illegal that are illegal. Because it's not like we're making a new law per se, right? We're just creating enforcement ability around something that has always been illegal, which is you can't actually use black market labor. Yet we're using it en masse. So how do we adjust to the environment that, okay, you are gonna use black market labor, but you actually can't use the benefits of black market labor, which is the exploitative piece.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't look at this. We're not selling this to the DCAG or to the California Department of Labor, right, to use for enforcement. We're selling it to companies to protect themselves from the enforcement entities or the plaintiffs' attorneys who are coming after them.
Fascinating conversation, man. All right, 30 seconds or less. How do we fix immigration? Go. No, I'm joking.
So if it was that easy, it would be fixed.
You know what? I think it isn't that hard. I think it's mostly just a political weapon tool. I was going to call it. Yeah, it's too valuable for Republicans to lose the immigration issue. It's something that is gets people fired up, understandably so. I don't want to fix it if it gets people out to the polls, right? And then on the flip side, you have another group of people that just thinks like, just let everybody in. It'll be neat. This is a land of opportunity,
Correct.
and the truth is definitely somewhere in between. And I think 80% or more of America is actually pretty united on that front. And it's embarrassing that we can't get our politicians to reflect that.
It is, but if we can't solve that problem, we can at least solve this problem.
Agreed with you.
Solve the
I
wage
completely.
theft
You can at least solve the wage theft problem. You can resolve a lot of the broader economic impacts just by getting people to stop being able to run their scheme.
Yep.
Right. If you can stop them from running their scheme, then that's at least a start.
Yep.
Your depth of knowledge and experience in this and many other spaces makes you a real pleasure to talk to, and I appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you, Chad.
I don't get to shake hands with our guests. This is awesome.
And Kenny, thank you for the question.
Awesome. Stacy, anything else that we want to hit on?
Just a lot of great comments in here. Let's see. So Tom Hughes had said in the Philadelphia market, while we don't see it often, we do come across contractors who are underpaying their employees or in some cases not paying them. While we don't encounter this often because we're a specialty market, we try to work with qualified contractor base, but it does happen.
Yep. Yeah, it's and if these laws aren't in effect in your market today, they're coming. Yeah, like these things are coming. The mayors of these cities and the governors of these states, because let's also acknowledge one of the other elephants in the room is they're looking for the tax income, right? And so are we, by the way.
Well, it's a way to collect more tax revenue without raising taxes.
That's right.
It's already due.
It's already due. It's just taxes that aren't being paid, and it's very difficult to size the market. Because we have no idea how many undocumented people are even here.
Yeah, and it's also hard to size actually how much money is stolen from workers because you don't know what you don't know.
Totally. On both ends of that equation. Yeah.
One quick
anything
question.
Yeah, go for it.
How many worker visas for the construction industry are necessary in your opinion?
Ooh.
Who asked that question?
Who do you think?
I would. I don't have a number of that. I mean, I think it's a significant number, but you have to balance that with, how many current. Obviously, you want to alleviate labor shortage, but you also want to make sure that you're not limiting opportunities for people who are already here. So, I don't know exactly how many. I would defer. If Kenny probably has done more research on that than I have, and knows that. Number
Kenny,
better.
Plug it in.
Yeah. I think there's a part of the reality that we have with labor in the United States is that we do have an immense. And I don't know enough to know the numbers. If I had thought about this in advance, I'd probably prepare them. But it's in the millions, an immense amount of working age Americans who really could be a part of our labor force. Yeah. And all this talk about immigration gets people pissed off because they're like, I've got a whole bunch of people sitting right here who could be working. And that really is something that there are efforts being made to tap into, but they're not being made at a broad enough scale. Yep. And I could see the argument, to Kenny's question, like if we could get a whole bunch of people off the freaking couch,
right?
I'm sorry to be that cold about it, but if we could get a bunch of people off the couch, the answer would be a lot less.
Correct.
But until we actually solve that problem, we actually need people who want to work. And I don't know about you, but I want the buildings to be built, and I want our economy to be vibrant. And while I hate that there's a whole bunch of people on the couch, and I also am not willing to allow that problem to stand in the way of progress. Yeah. In the meantime, but let's get those people off the freaking couch.
Yeah, I mean, there's a visionary construction leader in this state named Stan Merrick, who's been a longtime proponent of ID and tax. Right, he needs the workers. He wants them ID'd and taxed. Right, it doesn't mean they get to be.
I don't care if they're citizens or not. Just give them IDs and tax.
Let's get them ID'd and taxed. And in this state, we are real ID compliant. So there's a way that we could do that pretty well and tax them. But one of the things that he really talks about a lot is that dynamic you just talked about. We need to be able to train, certify, and employ a large trades workforce And we need to be able to, and we need to convince people that not only can they make a lot of money in the trades, but it really is rewarding work. And there are some voices out there, some influential voices out there trying to do that. But we've got to keep pushing that, because we need that to really fix long-term this problem. We need that. And what some of the benefits our customers see is that we track demographics of the workforce. And so you can see the average age of the electricians on your job sites, across all your job sites, the average age of the carpenters across your job sites. And you see that number creeping up. We don't have youth in this workforce, right?
That's right.
And so that kind of data is really important.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work being made, again, like I say, to attract people to come to the construction industry other than other industries. I'm supportive of it. Stacy's super passionate about it. Stacy's making a major impact on that front all the time. I'm also just for all the people that's like, but also get off your ass. And if you're going to do something, here's an industry where we can teach you, and you can get paid. And it's a lot better than welfare, folks. Like it's really, really good money. Don't think all is lost.
Correct.
There's an opportunity here for you.
Yep.
So anyway, we could go all day, and we can't go all day. Stacy,
we have one more question, though.
Yeah, shoot.
I think it's good to close out. Michael Donnelly had asked this question. So knowing the ramifications, why is the idea of monitoring for wage fraud such a hard sell for general contractors or construction management?
Great question, Mike. And that's one of the reasons why we partner with Odin, because everybody knows they need to monitor for safety, and everybody knows they need to monitor credentials, and many people want to know everyone who's on their workforce. I think the key is that the further away you get from the problem occurs at the labor broker, right? If an owner hires a GCCM, he hires a trade sub, he hires a second tier sub or a labor broker, and that guy is pocketing money instead of paying the worker. Now all of a sudden the owner and the GC are really far away from that problem, right? They don't have to deal with that problem every day.
Totally.
So they may acknowledge it, and they may even get hit with it. There's a contractor, big national GC, who's been hit like 4 times in the last 5 months. But it's taking the step to actually change processes. We're not seeing cost as an objection or price as an objection. It's taking the step to change the process, push the requirements down, and where the real disruption happens is at and below the trade subcontractor level. So I think that's one of the barriers, right? What we get when we partner with Odin, though, is that there's not a lot of barriers to that, to worker onboarding, credential management, access control in many cases, and safety management. And that's kind of the crawl. And then our customers can then put wage verification in where they need it, on the jobs where they need it, on the trades where they think they're at risk. And that model works really well for us too.
Just a little follow up to that. Do you get pushback from the worker himself?
It's a good question. We get pushback from when we're having conversations with prospects that the worker will object.
Right.
But we have not gotten much objection about having to put an app on their phone or facial recognition. I think people are now, and the workforce in general is now very used to, one way we check in is very akin to a boarding pass on to get on an airplane, right? An app they all have Uber and Zelle and everything else on their phones. Everybody does. They can use it. So not a whole lot of objection to that. We do see some methods are better at driving compliance than others, particularly checkout compliance, right?
Yeah.
You get a lot of check-ins and missing checkouts in certain methods.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm objecting. I think that's just
a part of, I agree with you. It's fantastic. And I think the brief summary that I have in my mind of what you just said is that, it's mostly awareness and willingness to change.
Yep. And
because of the distance from the problem, until you start getting just hammered with fines, it's hard for these guys to care. Headlines, fines, headlines, those types of, it's hard to get these guys to care. But once they decide to care, the issue goes away. It's not that there's real objections to it as much as there's apathy toward it. Yep. And the apathy goes away pretty quickly with some of these embarrassing, and I guess what if I could summarize also one other theme is what you would say to them is, or you could just get out in front of it and not allow yourself. It's kind of like, whatever. I'll stop smoking whenever the doctor says I'm sick.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Or you could just stop smoking,
Yes,
right? Because,
exactly.
it's
And we've seen some really influential figures do, Jim Davis is an example of a guy who was really instrumental in us starting this company because he was like, this is a big problem. I don't want to have this problem. I need help fixing it. Stan Merrick down here in Houston, Texas, same way. Like, this is a big problem. I want help fixing
there
it.
are champions pushing this stuff.
Yeah. And it's
And voices like Kenny Malik, which we appreciate.
Kenny
too,
Malik's been a huge proponent, very much helped our growth. So I appreciate that.
Yep. All right, cool. Thank you to Matt DeSarno. Thank you, Stacy, for as always helping to make sure that this is engaging conversation with our audience. And thank you to the Hotel Drover for setting us up in a cool room for helping us. I was like, we could do this in my bedroom, Matt. And we decided against that. Or the hotel room is what I mean. Yeah, my hotel room. And we decided against it. The bed in the background would send a weird message. This is better. This is better. Stacy, what do we have coming up next week?
Okay, so next week we have Mariella for workplace trends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about what's happening in the sort of office market in the current environment and what we see coming around the corner. Obviously, we're basically a half a decade now removed from the COVID, everybody works from home thing, and we're seeing a huge shift in the market. And Marielle is going to come in and talk about what she's seeing companies do and kind of forecasting what companies will be doing in the future and maybe how that's going to reverberate around the construction industry.
Yeah, that should be interesting to see what's changed.
It's been a long time since we've talked about it and on the show and I look forward to hearing what's new. So all right, thank you, Stacy. Have a great one.
What else are you guys going to do with the rest of your day?
Well, I have a conference to go to. That's why I'm here. Where are you going?
I am. I've got a couple meetings, and then I'm traveling to a conference as well.
Conference. We're going to conferences, Stace.
It's that season. Yeah. I'll be in one in Boston in a couple weeks too.
At least I'm not speaking at this. I love speaking at conferences, but this is a very relaxing one for me. I'm actually like an attendee, learning. Yeah. Just something that I need to do. So
good.
Have a great day, Stacy. Thanks as always.
Thank you.